Welcome back to the Eric Krown Crypto channel, or just that weird portion of the internet which you happen to be finding yourself on right now. With that said, I want to welcome all the new people here, of which we have plenty, and I want to say, of course, you're more than welcome here, but understand that we are going to be talking about all sorts of different things. And this day is a very special day, as it's 2 days before the day after the good old Dumbola, and this is going to be a big setup for the week to come. Of course, we'll be talking about short-term time frame price action here as well, but the big focus, of course, on the weekends is for the next week, as we do have CME weekly closure coming in from Friday, and that's going to really set the tone for the next a couple weeks to come. So with that in mind, I want to wish you the best and the happiest. Let's get into it right now. Start off with the Krown Trading application we found at app.krowntrade.net. There is a link in the description below, and it is for the price of free, actually. And we see, or what do we see? We see Fear and Greed Index actually at a 47. This is not updated, by the way. What it really should be is like 21 or something right now, which is extreme fear, technically speaking. And that is where we start to look for, or potentially imply that we could be looking for major lows. Do I think that we're there just yet? Well, we'll get into that soon enough. But, it's one of the underlying market dynamics that does make me a little bit more on the, bouncy-ish side soon. Not saying right now, but soonish, perhaps. Anyways, with all of that in mind, what else do we have going on? Oh, yes, we do have a sale going on. I should probably talk about that. Actually, we're going to come back to that later. I'll just let you know right there. But of course, when it comes down to the sale, make sure that any sort of programs or indicators that you're looking for, make sure that you actually watch the videos that are on the promotional page over there, because they'll explain who they're for and who they're not for, and hopefully disqualify you if that needs to be done, most importantly. So yeah, we'll come back to that a little bit later. Of course, there's no such thing as a magic pill, not even these programs, which I absolutely love, but at the same time, make sure that you understand if they're actually for you or not. Okay, in the top 10 best coins list, we see something that I've never heard of in my life ever, Cloud Brick up an amount that I'm not comfortable with saying. I suspect that is probably a bad read. Anchor, Mina, Audius, and Serum, Siacoin, Crypto.com, the Graph, and KuCoin token actually all having a decent day, all things considered, in fact, which we actually do see a few outliers here, but the majority of the market is obviously down. Into the market, that's how we go. That's where all the fun stuff is happening right now. And what do we see? This market never learns. This market never fucking learns, huh? Global leverage ratio. Oh, new all-time highs. Global open interest taken up right here as well. That is concerning. Now, of course, the reason why the leverage ratio is actually going up isn't just because, open interest is going up, but also the exchange's reserves for Bitcoin are going down as well. So we have a two-pronged attack right there. But at the same time, it does mean that this market is still just phenomenally over-leveraged. And of course, the global funding rate financing essentially is, more or less under parity right there. So you are paying, you're probably getting paid on some exchanges to actually hold your longs. But in general, you are paying a very small amount, very, very small amount to hold your longs on the majority of exchanges right there. So other than that, I really want to focus on price action day, because that is where, everything's going on. Let's start off with the short-term timeframes right around here, of which yesterday, yes, we did have a nice little dump-ola right after the stream ended, or not necessarily ended, but as I was forced off by my internet service provider, unfortunately. Thank God we got it working again. And what do we have going on right here? We are at extremes right now over the weekend, and typically over the weekend, we do see a bit of a reversion of what happened during the week's direction, and especially leading into the week to follow. And we do see extremes, of course, on BBWP, our volatility indicator. We also see even a little bit of bullish evidence come off that last low right here. And actually, if we go all the way back to our 19th of November lows, yes, we do have greater drafts of bullish evidence. So over the weekend, I probably would be looking for a bit more of a bouncy bounce here. Bounce targets can come up all the way very easily to even $56,000. I don't feel too compelled by this information, though. My strong opinions on this market right now are that as long as we are below that last rejected lower high at $59,000, which is consistent on both the 4-hour, 6-hour, daily, pretty much all higher term timeframes, we are within the context of a downtrend, and all bounces are just that, bounces. So while I do expect that Bitcoin does put in, a greater extension of this bounce, maybe even to above $56,000 perhaps this weekend, it doesn't really mean all that much to me, because the setup and what has been done over the last 24 hours on CME specifically, which is not trading over the weekend, I think speaks rather big volumes here. But also kind of playing into the theory that we have a bit of a bounce here is that Bitcoin did play out pretty much the measure move out of a descending triangle target, and typically going to be some closing positions there at the very minimum, and that is kind of why you get a bit of a bounce. And then also just people buying the last major lows that we saw way back on over here in our last very short-term consolidation on that monumental run up from 40,000 all the way to 69,000 bucks at about 53.5, of which 2 points of confluence right there. pretty damn good, so probably does bounce over the weekend here. I'm sure that momentum oscillators on the short-term time frames are also doing about the same thing as well. Let's just go double check. Hourly Stokes are doing what? They are going up as long as above 54,500, and what are hourly Stokes doing right here? Freshly crossing up above 53,750. 4-hour is also freshly crossing up above 54,100, and I imagine 12-hour might also might actually cross up there. We even have a little bit of a trend line support coming in right here at about 55,350, which we're currently about $350 below as of the recording of this video. So, can Bitcoin carry out this bounce a little bit more? Yep. Going back up to $56,000 is certainly not out of the question or not out of the ordinary. But again, as long as Bitcoin is below this rejective lower high right here, where we confirmed all those drives of hidden bearish divergence yesterday on video, that was kind of giving us the bias that things do come down first and foremost. Although I should say that, hey, if Bitcoin actually does put in, another local low here on the 12-hour, we will have regular bullish divergence of the 3 drives variety. So very likely does play at a nice upside move. In fact, that wouldn't just have a target towards $56,000. Might even come up a little bit more than that to 57.5. But keep in mind that typically over the weekends, the moves are usually a phantom, as you probably saw last weekend as well, and the week prior than that, and the week prior than that, and well, the week prior than that, going all the way back and over here. Contra moves. The difference was over here, the weekend moves were to the downside and we're buying opportunities. In this case, weekends are you looking like a bouncy bounce right here. So we've got all of that. I'm curious if the daily has anything going on right here. No, we are not going to be creating any sort of divergences just yet. And let's get into the fun stuff now. So, or maybe I should also talk about, let's say that we do get rejected right here. I don't think this is happening, but what would make me look for further continuation to the downside first before a bit of a weekend bounce, which I don't think this is happening, but if it were to happen, I'd be looking for an hourly closure below 53,500, just this wick low right here. And then I'd be looking for very likely a drive towards 52,000 or 52,500. Don't think that that's what's happening right here, but that would be the conditions that I'm looking for. Until then, just bouncy bounce into this weekend. Okay, so let's talk about this next week to come. What happened on Friday that was of great significance for CME specifically? Oh, by the way, we're also bouncing off the weekly 21 as we are bouncing off the 5-day 21 as well. Again, this is not great. Anyways, go over here to the weekly CME. This one already closed for Friday, and what do we have? Okay, so first and foremost, we do have continuation from our shooting star dildo that we did see on the 8th of November. Obviously, that was confirmed the week following that, and we got bearish on this channel below 63,500, looking first for a move to about 58 or 57. Very likely a bounce there, which we got, and then failed, and then lower over time, which is what we're getting right now. Now, with that in mind, we do also see that we have multiple drives of bearish divergence on the weekly RSI right here. We've been calling this out for a while, as we do on the 5-day, of course, which got confirmed earlier, and the bi-weekly is pretty much there as well. As we already have continuation below these last few wick lows right here. So based off of that, I am looking for at minimum a test down to the 21 exponential average on CME right here. And you'll notice that CME 21 versus spot price action 21 are decently different. Spot pretty much already hit it. CME has not. CME is more or less right around $52,000, perhaps even a little bit lower than that. And spot is a good $500 to $1,000 above that. Depending upon when you kind of approach it. So this is still looking like, a major weekly top right here. Now, is it a macro reversal? No. When do I call a macro reversal? I call a macro reversal when we have a lower low and a lower high. Right now, we have nothing of the sort. But because Bitcoin went on such a tear from 40,000 all the way to 69,000 bucks right here, Bitcoin can come down, or Bitcoin would need to come down and take out our last higher low on the weekly, which is all the way over here at 43 to 44,000 bucks, before that even becomes like a topic of conversation. So that is kind of the problem with going to the moon without, really stopping in between there, which, I mean, if you look at it on log scale, it's really not that bad right here, to be fair. But these are big numbers, and big numbers will naturally have big ranges. So let's put things into context right here. And obviously, we do not have a lower high as well. In fact, we have higher highs the whole way through. I'm sure that some people are calling this a double top. Is this technically a double top or not? It's a double top in the way that you look for a pullback from that region, but a reversal, no, I don't think that that's what we're seeing right here, at least not on first pass. Anyways, okay, what else do we see on CME for the weekly closure? We saw another confirmation below what would be necessary in order to turn weekly stochastic momentum oscillator back onto the upside. So that was also the other hopium that we could have potentially seen yesterday, although extremely unlikely. The condition was not met above 65,400, and now we're going to be nose diving below the critical zone, which is where I actually look at that as an actionable signal for what it's worth. And more importantly, the RSI divergence is going to hold a lot more weight. But both of those things going in the same direction, alongside just a continuation move. is going to imply lower prices over time. So I would be looking for a bounce again coming into next week. I do believe that Bitcoin very likely starts Monday off, perhaps sometime around that U.S. markets open lower, and do we put in a nice bounce somewhere around 51 to 52,000 bucks? That's kind of where I'm looking at right now. Do I think that we could maybe have a major weekly low around that place? It's possible, yes. I mean, it is no secret that Bitcoin does love the yellow 21, on the weekly throughout its bull markets. I mean, just looking at it throughout the totality of its history, which we can just briefly do right here, it has been pretty damn good. Anytime Bitcoin's above it and it has a positive slope, those are your bull markets. Anytime Bitcoin's, vice versa, then those are your bear markets or your crashes, if you will. And that's been very consistent amongst the history of time. I mean, we can go back on over here. We can see all of these tests down to the 21 throughout the 2016 to 2018 run were pretty consistent. Bitcoin puts in these about 30% corrections from top to bottom onto the 21. Yes, sometimes we get wicks lower. That's fine, but no opens and closures below, with it also having a negative slope, which is two very key components. Again, the slope and also closing below. This one over here, again, another 33% correction to the downside. This one over here, another 37% correction to the downside, crash. 31% correction to the downside. 35 to 36% correction to the downside. We have the same thing over here, another, 38, depending upon whether you use wicks or closures. On a closing base, about 25. You get my point. And there's one more iteration right here, of which I can already show you. It's about 20%. Anyways, where the 21 currently be coming in, more importantly on CME. Again, that's between 51 and 52, and from top to bottom, that would be a corrective phase of about 25% if we do hit that, which I suspect that we very likely will. So what does that imply? I mean, we could maybe see a major low right there. We'd expect to see, at least like a week or two kind of hanging out that low, maybe a few wicks below. That's fine. Even if Bitcoin got a wick down below 50,000 bucks, but closed above, that'll still look good actually long term. But I wouldn't be calling a reversal on this until we actually get a higher high on the daily. And for right now, this is a very clear and obvious rejection, with Bitcoin pretty much closing on the lows for Friday, which was also the weekly. And a general rule coming in from traditional markets, which is where I started off, and traditional markets are doing this pretty much exact same thing over here, by the way, as well. Closed on their lows. I'll just quickly show you NASDAQ chart, for example. Yeah, there you go. Looks rather similar, although a little bit more strong long term. But more importantly with Bitcoin and traditional markets is that when you close on your lows on a Friday after, a big reversal day, or a big reversal week, of which, traditional markets closed on bearish engulfing dildos, which is exactly as it sounds. Well, you typically get continuation coming into Monday as people freak out over the weekend. And right now, we have a political situation, or not a political, although it turns into a political situation, but we have a situation in the world with the new flu dump, right? And what happened last time? Well, the initial response was extreme volatility within the market with downside. The long-term result was, as you already know it. I mean, it was basically just this. And if I am going to be spitballing ideas right here, what does this essentially imply? Well, the money printers don't turn off anytime soon, and all of that talk about tapering is now just going to be talk, most likely. So, if Bitcoin were to, if CME were to open up on Sunday, somewhere around 56 or 50, even 56.5, I'd still be looking at that as a rejective area, with very likely downside implied right here. If we are looking at this as a distributive top, which it was to a lesser extent, not a super obvious one, and not one that I'd really like identify myself, but but more importantly with that, we can actually make a measured move off of this just based off the consolidation, and where that be pointed down towards about low $50,000 territory, which is actually directly in line with your last major weekly high coming in from September 7th, actually. And those are, very traditional areas to be looking for. At the least on, at least on a bounce, and to a greater extent, a lot of the time those are, you're going to be your major lows. So we'd have technical target, we'd have historic price action information. And if you do want to take a Fibonacci retracement, and let me actually do this for the bullish side, actually not a bearish retracement, just so that we can see the actual numbers here. And I'm going from the 40,000 low to the $69,000 high. You can see that the 618 Fibonacci retracement would actually be right around that region, and that is basically 50,000 bucks, anywhere between about 50,000 and 51,000 bucks, maybe a little bit below there. But again, wicks below are fine. Closures below do imply, continuation. So I do think that Bitcoin has a greater chance of putting in a major low somewhere right around here. rather than where we're currently at right now. Again, it depends how you kind of define these things, but if you're just looking for a short-term bounce, a tradable bounce, I think you're seeing that right now. But I would expect things to very likely come lower coming into, beginning of next week. So with all of that said, let's talk about what this could look like over a longer period of time, which I have done over here with my good old LARP lines. So this is a chart that I drew in at the end of 2 weeks ago, and then also beginning of this past week, basically saying, hey, look, once we got this reversal over here, the direction was down. Are they going to be bounced along the ways? Yes. We didn't necessarily get the bounces that I really wanted to see a bounce up to like 61,000. We didn't get that. We didn't get the validation conditions for that, unfortunately, but that would have made things a lot more obvious, a lot more easy. In this case, looks like we're going to see a little bit more fun action here. Anyways, what would this potentially look like over time with Bitcoin coming down to those levels, whether it be $50,000 or perhaps even a little bit below there? Well, if Bitcoin were to put in a weekly low around that region, we would actually still be operating on higher lows. Again, Bitcoin has higher lows as long as we're above about 44 to 43,000 bucks. And also you can see that the green 55 exponential average is starting to, work its way up around that region. You can kind of just visualize about where that's going to be around that time. So maybe something like this. And that is typically, if you're familiar with, if you're in the program and you're familiar with the Krown cross strategy, typically where I am looking for on a trending higher low. So in that case, could it look something like that where, we get another low somewhere around, in this case, that would be around the 0.5 Fibonacci retracement, or for the overall consolidation going from 30,000 to 69,000, potentially yes. That'd actually be a pretty damn good area. 618 is currently at about 40, or it's not currently, it will be at 45,000 bucks or so. And I suppose the longer that Bitcoin kind of takes to kind of mosey its way on down there, the higher that this will naturally come in around. And if Bitcoin were to put in anything resembling a low around this region, that would look really, really good long term. So again, long term, I'm quite bullish on this asset still. It's just long term. And I do believe that this market cycle is going to take a lot longer than what most people are considering. For example, I put out a video the last couple weeks here where I don't think that this one likely ends until at least the midpoint of 2022, and maybe even at latest Q4 of 2022. And that's just based off the information that we have right now. So that could obviously change, but for right now, I do quite like that. Currently speaking, we are bouncing off the 382. That is to be expected. And sometimes you do put, or it's not sometimes, in very, very bullish markets, you will put in lows around those regions. I don't think that that's what we're looking at right now, to be honest with you. The reason why is, again, all of the momentum also is turning down right here alongside a weekly short-term reversal. But yes, long term, this would be one massive reaccumulation formation in the format of an ascending triangle with higher lows, assuming that, or insinuating that buyers getting more aggressive, and that would have a technical target upon breakout of your basically $65,000 or $66,000 territory right here. To your plan B targets, basically 90,000 plus. So that'd still look pretty damn good. I am bullish on Bitcoin long term. It's just, this probably takes a lot longer than what I think a lot of people are considering right now. Going back on over here, let's just double check. What was the bi-weekly? Yeah, the bi-weekly is also going to confirm, or pretty much already has confirmed, multiple drives of bearish divergence right here, right? Just using this as a bit of a governor. 1, 2, 3, 4, coming off the highs. The more drives that you test into there, typically the lower moving average that I look for. Right now, we're just testing to the 9. I think it's very unlikely we see a major low right there. Just a little bit of a short-term bounce. The 21's a little more likely, and guess where that's currently at? 47,000 bucks or so. So I do respect that. Could things get more nasty over time? Yes, but I'd want to see that happen before I actually start to angle myself towards that region. Other than that, is there anything else I want to talk about over here? Oh yeah, shit. Yeah, another thing kind of insinuating that we very likely get continuation here, than not. Again, CME closed Friday on volume on the lows and closed below the bottom side troll underband, alongside weekly Stokes turning down or continuing down, and I believe the daily are certainly down as well. Now they're pretty beat up here at 55,750. It really wouldn't take too much to turn them up. So I do think that Bitcoin is probably coming to a major low sooner rather than later. But does that imply that we go a little bit further south? Yes, I do think so, because from what I can gather from crypto Twitter and crypto YouTube, and perhaps you can verify this yourself or let me know in the comment section what you think about this. But it seems to me like a lot of people either think that 55 is the low, or was the low because that one's already destroyed. or basically where we're at right now is the low, or 53,000 is the low, all of which are, you do have good technical reasons for that, or you did for at least a couple of them, not any longer because they already got destroyed. But 53,000 bucks, I can definitely understand that. I'm just insinuating that this one can definitely come a little bit lower than that. I would still be long-term bullish on this asset. I do not let go of my long-term bullishness as long as we're in a weekly uptrend. That's just one of my, long-term rules here. So I think that's a good place for me to start to wrap up this video. It's maybe 20 minutes a bit too long. So do we want to go back on over the programs over here? Again, just watch the videos that accompany them. Look, all of these programs I absolutely fucking love. Like, I stand by them. This program in particular is like my life work right there, of which I actually update somewhat frequently, as I see fit. However, again, they're not magic pills. It's going to require a shit ton of work on your own behalf. And typically speaking, if you put in the work, we've found that about a year or 2 year and a half is what it takes for most people to get to where they want. Yes, some people get there faster. Yes, some people take a little bit slower, but that's about what you can expect, assuming that you do put in the work. And of course, no rush for something like this. The sale goes on until basically the end of the month. And then a secret, here's a little secret. We'll probably have one, or we'll very likely have one for the end of the year as well, the good old Christmas sale, right? Or holiday sale, if you will, so we can be more inclusive. Okay, cool. All right. I think that's going to do it for today. I want to wish you well. I want to say, again, have your plan in this market, right? Have your plan, and don't just go off of exactly what I'm saying. I'm just kind of giving my particular views on this market. I've essentially gone ahead and rebalanced a lot of my names here. What I've done is I've essentially, and I'll tell you exactly what I've done. Well, I won't tell you exactly what I've done, but I'll tell you the gist of what I've done. What do I do in situations like this? I sell my losers immediately. So I sold them at the beginning of this week once we got the reversal. And then once I do feel like we're starting to put in some major lows, well, that's at the point where I do start to, rebalance into the winners, basically. So hopefully that was helpful. I'm going to be signing off now. Take care and see you very soon.